Sundays 9 a.m. on SABC2 have become particularly special because we get to celebrate and profile women in sport on the country. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Dr Koketjo Tsebe, and she's done incredible work when it comes to our athletes in elite sport, from softball to Banyana Banyana to the Olympics in Paris. She's covered most of these games, but the most important aspect, which is the mentality of these players. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a chat with our incredible Dr. Tsebe. And we have one of my favorite human beings in the whole wide world. And after this interview, I'm certain that you'll say the same about her. Dr. Koketjo, thank you so much for joining us. I often wonder with psychologists if people ever ask you if you're doing okay. Like, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm pleased to interact with you today. I'm doing fine, taking one step at a time, one day at a time.
Yeah. I know you do come from a huge loss in your family, and I ask that with that in mind as well, to say that, do people ever remember to check in on you, especially when you have such a heavy job of carrying so many people's emotions and problems?
Yeah, fortunately, I'm blessed with a very solid support system. So they do check up on me, though they always say I'm too brave, you're so courageous.
Yeah.
But how are you doing? And it feels so good to have a strong support system.
And then are you able to answer honestly and say, today I'm not okay?
Definitely. You know, we have different relationships with people. There are those that you feel comfortable. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, when I got to Pretoria from Easter holidays in Limpopo, I sent my brother a message. I'm like, oh, I just miss the usual to call Mama. Mama, I've arrived. But now I cannot do that. So that's being authentic, because it's a brother. And others that also is going through a similar experience, or maybe those that have gone through the same experience, I'm able to be authentic as well. But that does not mean I don't with those that have also went through loss. It just depends on the relationship.
Yes, it counts for a lot. Take me back to what your childhood looked like. You've spoken of your brother. I know you had a solid relationship with your parents as well. How was it like growing back at home in Limpopo?
Very fun. so fun, and it's always refreshing to look back, because I just appreciate on how much we were raised with so much love, stability and nurturance. I mean, we still get nurtured even now. A childhood that marked primarily on solid Christian principles. We go to Anglican church, but also strongly aligned to sports. We've always watched sports at home, followed all Olympics, all sporting codes, the usual Friday boxing in the evening, alternating between different codes, cricket, football, and also a sense of unity. I am from a family of 4. And we spent most of the time together, created so many memories, but also embracing the community, because a child is raised by a community. A community which held us accountable. They still do to date. If you pass by and you don't say hello, they will call you to order. But overall, just a sense of community, shared goals, shared responsibilities, and shared love.
And I mean, you've spoken and highlighted that sports played a huge role. But I want to understand then, as you go into school, your primary school, your high school, what in your qualities drew you closer to psychology as a career?
Definitely sports. Growing up playing sports, we go through different challenges. Of course, we have fun, but you also observe a need. I think that's where essentially I just realized that wouldn't there be somebody who actually helps with team dynamics? And it was just by coincidence that's when I learned about sports psychology. I said, this is what the career that I actually want to follow. And I never looked back.
So how did you learn about it? Because it's in our communities, it's a nurse, a doctor, teacher, you know, we're not exposed to, particularly in sports as well, because sport is not just the coach and the players. So then maybe elaborate further on how sports psychology landed on your laps.
No, it landed quite interestingly. I was reading a magazine. There used to be this furniture magazines, right? And at the back, they would highlight different careers.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of the former Banyana players who was saying that she's studying sports psychology at Tux. And then I read more about sports psychology because as an athlete, I related more with what the other athletes are doing, or, you know, their work were quite impactful. And that's when I did so much research about it, and I was so obsessed. Like, I was so obsessed with it. Like, I'm going to be a sports psychologist. And when we were watching Olympics at home, I'd also imagine myself that one day I'm going to take Team South Africa. I will be behind the scene.
Wow.
But it looked so scary and a bit unrealistic. But I knew at the back of my mind that it's possible. I mean, somebody has to do it. Somebody got a dream and actually put all the work to ultimately reach the desired goal.
And I imagine that part of what makes it look quite distant is because, number one, when you see, especially at a younger age, it would often be predominantly white people that are in the team, you know, let alone behind the scenes. You imagine that the team doctors, the coaches, it's a lot of white people, very little black people, and another thing is very little females as well. So those things are what would make a child back in Limpopo or any township in South Africa look at it and think, it looks good, but I'm not sure if it's meant for me.
To tell you the truth, I had those moments.
Yeah.
It seemed quite scary, and I'm like, am I being realistic here? But it can work ultimately, and I've never seen somebody who looks like me doing it. Never got to interact with a psychologist working in sports. And there will be moments of doubt and just questioning if it can really become a reality.
Yes.
And growing up in a township, I went to township schools. Somebody was actually laughing because I told them I started to know how to speak English fluently when I was at University of Limpopo. And you still need to learn the language. You still need to understand the dynamics. And at some point, you happen to walk into those prestigious dressing room to contribute largely to the team's success. So it was just a phase, different phases marked with highs and lows, but also marked with a sense of comfort to say it doesn't matter where we're coming from.
Yeah.
We can get there and do our thing.
And that there is just the beginning of the story of a team psychologist, a lecturer in UNISA, as well as a mentor as well, Dr. Koketjo Tsebe. When we come back, we dive in a little deeper because we often get to speak about the teams that she works with and less about her. So we're starting our episode with just getting to know the lady, the brains behind some of the most important performances in the green and gold. We're coming back after the break. Our guest today, Dr. Koketjo Tsebe. Doctor, so you're telling us about your studies at the University of Limpopo. How was that? And then are you still solid on your goal of my journey here is to become a team psychologist for one of the teams in South Africa?
My journey at the University of Limpopo was quite interesting. We normally say, go TEF. You cannot be hungry because we were one big family. You could be coming from library in the evening and you call one of your friends or classmate, you pop in to have pap, to eat pap and go to sleep. So University of Limpopo strongly built, I still believe so, and I hope and now, based on a sense of community, on Ubuntu, that we all share what we have. And we are here to change our lives, to change our family lives and become better people. And it's quite refreshing to see on how life turned out for the majority of us. Look at the circle of friends, that friendships that we've created, that we we've done really, really, really well from our humble beginning.
So from then, you graduate, and take me through then the early days of your career. What did that look like?
All right, went to University of Limpopo and obtained 3 degrees, a BA, and an honors degree in psychology, and Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology. And I knew, because I did research, that should I go to register for a doctorate, it should be in sports psychology, because I want to work in sports psychology. So I graduated Masters in 2016, September, and the following year, I registered a PhD at Fordham. At that time, I struggled to get research supervisors because most of the academics, it's not in their line of research interest. And they suggested a few supervisors in the countries. I think it was probably 4 or 5. And I was drawn into Prof. Leon van Niekerk's name, and I Googled him. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And then initiated contact. Started doctoral studies at Fordham, which is far. I mean, it's in the Eastern Cape.
Yes, it's a completely different environment as well. I mean, from your language you're speaking in Limpopo all the way to Fort Hay.
Yeah. At that time, I was staying in Pretoria. I was working in Pretoria. I was doing my ComServe at Steve Biko Academic Hospital. So home is in Limpopo. I'm based in Pretoria. I'm studying in East London. So at that time, then, because I do a lot of research and mentorship, it was that I'm starting a PhD in psychology. It's also important that I start to do work in sports. And I made contact with Softball South Africa. This is the sports I grew up playing.
Yes.
And my research topic was in softball. And I asked the president of Softball South Africa, Mr. Matsitela, to afford me an opportunity on pro bono to work, because I wanted to understand the work more. I'm trained in clinical psychology and now transitioning into sports. And, you know, he did not even hesitate. He said, just come and join in. And I remember my first tour was in Botswana. Botswana, they're very big in softball. And we started off that relationship then. Basically, was still
navigating the space.
Yes. And you're translating theory into practice. And but Prof. Leon has always had my back. Prof. Niekerk was just there reflecting, this is how it felt. I wasn't sure. I mean, I'm a human being overall. But he encouraged me, and also the Federation were quite supportive of the efforts and the programs we're bringing into the team.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the rest is history after that. Yeah.
And I mean, I met you when I knew that you've worked with softball, and it's what we call a minority sport in South Africa. What are some of the challenges that you notice that, okay, I'm seeing a difference here? The treatment with softball is just a little different.
Softball is quite very interesting. You know why? At some point, I should take you to the NPC's games. It's shared beautiful experience of singing. They're playing it for the passion. It's not a professional sport in the country. Yeah. The social cohesive part of it, a nation building. And people that are in softball for it and for real. Obviously, different sporting codes presents with different challenges. Professional sports will have different level of challenges. So it's, as you said, a minority sporting code. Probably the need for the sports to grow, that at some point it should be professional. The need for certain athletes who would also want to really maybe play internationally, because it's big in the USA as well. You still find those that have dreams, and you have to just encourage them that it is possible. They can still navigate into the space with scholarships. You don't have to be coming from a privileged background to be able to play in the USA. But you can tap and explore if there's any study opportunities, and you can have a scholarship while playing softball at that site. So
for the people at home who don't understand the typical what do I call it, the day-to-day when you're within the team setup. So let's sit on softball. It's during a tournament. What role are you playing when it comes to, because we know there's a coach, there's the players, there's probably a physio, a team manager who makes sure the kids are fine. Why is it so crucial to have a team psychologist within that structure?
Laura, we're very important to hold the space for the team. The coach plays multiple roles, very multiple roles. So is the team managers. Actually, I always ask our team manager, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Because you're essentially also the engine to make sure that all disciplines work together. As a psychologist, then, is to also read the energy, read the room, at times on behalf of the captain or the coach, and give more of an advisory role, which does not only end there. Also, at that space as a psychologist, you'd have individual sessions that can be voluntarily, where players would come to you on a voluntary basis.
Yeah.
But at times, you could be having picked up something, some patterns, or maybe energies that maybe Lona today doesn't seem to be doing well. Can we have grab coffee? I mean, our work is spontaneous, especially when we're on tour camps. But like I said, essentially is to hold space and provide emotional support throughout the tours, even before competitions. Holding the space, being the go-to person is what we essentially do as a psychologist.
Would you say that we understand as a country the importance of it? Because, I mean, since 1996, it's not too long ago where we've been readmitted into playing global sports. So I'm going to ask you to think about that one a little bit, but just the understanding of your role and its importance. Because I know certain teams do not have psychologists. I'm not going to say which ones, but I sense that there's just a focus that's not there when it comes to mental health in certain teams in the country. So when we come back, we're going to get the great doctor to answer that question for us. It's Women in Sports South Africa. Our guest this morning on Wiser is Dr. Tsebe. Doctor, we were just speaking about your early days and the first team that you got to engage with, and it was with softball. So my question to you before the break was, do you believe that we understand the importance of your role when we look at the global aspects and how other countries are so much more advanced when it comes to sports and the importance of mental health?
No, it's a work in progress, but I don't think we really understand, which there's context into it. You spoke about that it's not long since we've been competing in global sports. So you can imagine there's the administrative part of it, finding ways to qualify, of which other disciplines like sports psychology still trying to find their feet as a discipline. So at times I always say that let's just be understanding, and let's not be aggressive when it comes to wanting to include or advocating for inclusion of sports psychology in sports. We are getting there, and SASCOC has played a very instrumental role in ensuring that in all competitions, majority of competitions, there is a psychologist traveling with the team. And I think it then means federations have to follow suit, and also teams or individual teams or athletes rather need to follow through.
Yeah.
We are getting there. I think at times what I pick up, it could be the misunderstanding of why do we need a psychologist, somebody who's going to come and speak, and then it creates another dynamic of funding. To say no, but we cannot be funding somebody to come and talk. It takes different management style and coaching abilities or philosophy to strongly recommend and believe in the inclusion of a sports psychologist. And we've seen other teams doing that and taking that stance to full-time contract psychologist, and which we hope that other teams will also join in. But we are getting there.
And then from the perspective of athletes, because even your average human being would say that I don't believe in therapy, I don't believe in psychology, because how will telling someone my problems help? How is the reception with the athletes?
Quite positive, very positive, and especially if you start off the relationship before tournaments or competition, quite receptive. You have different types of athletes. I mean, you have those that are proactive, and you have those that are quite reactive, who might say, I don't want a psychologist, and it gets hectic and they just call you, and we understand.
Yeah.
So we have blended type of athletes mindset and approach into high performance. The ones that are mostly proactive are those that are quite aware, they've been exposed, or maybe they've been recommended to see a psychologist. And what they would do then, they would create a word of mouth, because they'll speak about it either publicly or in person to say, I've benefited from therapy. Or you'd get athlete A who'd say, I'm doing quite well, but I think the mental aspect
is what's missing.
And yes. And then they would volunteer to come and see a psychologist. And we also quite understanding for those who feel they cannot benefit. Remember, our services are voluntarily. We just hope that you'll still be able to navigate, because essentially everybody is built with ability to solve problems, to navigate. But it's only, or most likely in the event that they are struggling, that they would require professional help.
Sure. And I mean, what I imagine what has also helped is globally we've seen a shift, maybe in the past 5 years or so, where even documentaries have been made. Michael Phelps in swimming, Naomi Osaka struggled with mental health, and that has created a bigger conversation when it comes to sport and mental health, because the perception is you get paid a lot of money, you're just playing sport, what problems could you have?
Absolutely. When our sporting icons, as you've mentioned, openly spoke about their mental health struggles, it served more as a, they did some level of advocacy. They mobilized and encouraged others to actually consider seeking mental health services. And essentially you can have it all. You're a human being. I mean, you give an example of how that you were successful, you were earning good money, but it comes with pressure. Peak performance, being an outstanding player comes with a massive pressure to keep going and to stay on top of the game. And at times it can be quite stressful. And that's where the need of having a support system in a form of a psychologist can play a crucial role to hold the space and keep you on top of the game.
And in terms of then the community, which is us, the people that are supporting and watching, what then would you advise our treatment be of our stars? Because number one, we're expecting results. Team South Africa is going to the Olympics. Can they come back with medals? Is there maybe a lack of understanding and grace that we tend to not give our athletes?
Yeah, we tend to. We encourage our South Africans to be quite understanding, be compassionate, be empathetic. It's high performance sports, it's not easy, and it's not for everyone. You would see, statistically shows on how many can make the cut and the selection criteria. It's demanding, and the least that our athletes need is to be criticized, for the community to be hard on them. They need support. We need to be more compassionate and rally behind them through thick and thin.
Well, our guest today is Dr. Koketjo Tsebe, and she's a team psychologist, worked with Softball South Africa, worked with Banyana, and Olympics. SASCOG has been used her a lot, but also a crucial role that she played with the Proteas women. So in our next episode, next week, we get to understand her roles with some of the teams that she's worked with, as I've mentioned, but also that final that happened in India with the Proteas women, the heartbreak, but nonetheless the hope as well that one day the cricket team will prevail. Women in Sport comes back next week, Sunday at 9 a.m. on SABC2.